All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got to make this video kind of fast. The wife is coming home from a business trip. She's been gone for about a week, and she'll be home at 4 p.m., which is like, 13 minutes from now. And the dogs are going to start freaking out. So let's try to do this video really fast. So I had an interesting time of it in Gnomer today, where basically I got into a conversation with somebody in my guild about like Paladin tanking kind of a thing. And basically, I was picking up gear to try to do the Spell Power Paladin build. And the guy basically said that I was doing it wrong and that the Strength Agility build was better. The SoM Strength Agility build as opposed to the SoR Spell Power Paladin build. He brought this up after I mentioned that I was going to do the other Paladin tanking build. I was like, oh, I'm going to do the Spell Power one. And he was like, what are you talking about? Blah, 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 blah. And eventually it came down to his exact wording was 1,000 Paladins have been parsing with the SoM build, so they must know something that I don't. And I responded basically that if 1,000 paladins are doing one thing and Pally Time tells you to do another, I'm probably right. But anyway, that whole interaction pissed me off enough that it basically forced me to spend an entire afternoon. I've been working on this thing since like 1, so we're going on 3 hours here of sitting down and doing all the math. And why do you want my attention now? Go away. Hey, shoo. Shoo, I love you, but shoo. Damn dog. He's trying to lick my feet. What's going on here? Oh my god. Okay, alright. I'm just gonna start hitting you until you leave. Oh yeah, isn't that nice? Okay, I love you too. Relax. Where the heck was I? Ugh. Right, that actually pissed me off enough to get off my butt and actually do some serious theory crafting on the subject of tanking. I would like to think that other paladins would do it in my place. Lord knows this is my first paladin tanking video ever, other than like, basic dungeon tanking stuff. I like to think that other people, already put out videos on the subject, and this isn't really my wheelhouse, but, okay, we're gonna give it a go and see what it is. So the two build options basically are one has like non-existent spell power, like literally 12 spell power base. But then they have just an ocean of agility and strength gear. We're assuming that they're using kings. We're assuming that they're using Horde of Lordaeron here. And we're assuming that 14% agility, 14 agility is worth 1% crit. The other build is slightly different, focusing a fair bit more on spell power. She also uses the cloak, this spell power cloak, as opposed to the 1% critical strike cloak. That might make a big difference one way or the other, really hard to say. But you can see she gets up to about 114 spell power as opposed to 12 spell power. She also has significantly more stats. But really what we want to look at over here is, I built them on Wowhead, then I've transferred everything over and calculated everything over here. And let's get this going. Yeah. So here you can see the SOR build, and here you can see, come here, let's do it. Here you can see the SOM Agi build, like the actual stats from Wowhead. And then the agility, of course, is factoring in Kings and Horn of Lordaeron and all that stuff. That's why the Agi went up from like 81 to like 111 here, and the crit goes up to like, 8% as opposed to 6%. There's 1% more crit over here on this gear in total, just because you have the cloak that has 1% crit with this build particularly. You also have plus 1% hit because you're using the hazard set as opposed to a two-piece shock forged and then the hazard pants for 1% hit. But it is what it is. You can see the critical strike is actually very close, 15% here, 17% here. Hit chance is a 1% difference, but that's very important for SOM, Seal of Martyrdom, but not so super important for SOR. That's why things are the way they are. Spell crit, of course, is a little bit higher over here. It might be even as high as 16% for Holy Spells. This is Holy Spell crit, by the way. and that is because they're significantly higher mana bar. These two builds have almost identical HP, but one has 2,300 mana as opposed to 1,650 mana. All of these stats are basically base with nothing else going on except for there's a number of things going on. There's a Blessing of Kings and a Horn of Lordaeron. This is assuming you have two Paladins around. So there's Blessing of Kings, there's Horn of Lordaeron, there's a Sanctity Aura, and there's an improved Consecration. Not Consecration, Judgment of the Crusader. Okay, so improved Judgment of the Crusader will give you 92 spell power as opposed to 80 spell power as it stands currently. But you can see this build uses only one piece of hazard, and that is the legs for the hit chance with spells and melee attacks. Not super important. You could actually kind of swap it out with the other shock gear set in the grand scheme of things. Hit gear, it doesn't seem to be super important with the SOR build. So that's another alternative. Use the Shock Forge because it gives you critical strike, and of course you use the boots because they give you spell power. But other than that, there's not that much difference in the gearing outside of rings and stuff like that. I did calculate this. This was a little bit better. Blah 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 blah. But anyways, let's try to keep this video short. Okay, so by the time it's all said and done, your stuff starts doing weird things like this. Seal of Martyrdom per hit does 61 damage, whereas Seal of Righteousness does 101. This, of course, can crit. This one, of course, cannot. This one is subject to Seal of Casino. This one is not. Consecration is a little bit higher on the spell power build than it is over there. Mainly it's because this thing actually has really good spell power. She has 336 spell power if you have the improved Judgment of the Crusader, and you have the Gnomer world buff currently. This one over here, not so much. I didn't really factor in the 4% spell hit from the Gnomer buff, so when you see this math down here where it's 13 minus 1, 15 minus 1, 25 minus 2, 25 minus 2, that's because some of the spells are missing. Maybe that Gnomer buff changes this, and you can factor in more hits. But I just wanted to show you that the SOR damage is significantly higher than the SOM damage. The judgment damage is no contest. It's almost 400 damage for the SOR, and it's a whopping 65 for the JOM. Interesting on Seal of Martyrdom build is you cannot actually support Judgment of Martyrdom. It's actually a mistake if you Judgment of Martyrdom with this build, possibly with the exception of switching to a two-hander and judging, and then switching back to a one-hander. Wouldn't recommend that. The reason for this is because it puts you on a GCD, and the SOM build is already really, really hurting on the GCD category. So, for example, she already has 75 seconds of 130-second combat time here, dedicated to throwing around GCDs, and every time she crits, she needs suddenly to barf out 2 GCDs, so you just can't support Judgment on the Seal of Martyrdom build to save your life. If you do judge and you immediately get a crit, and that crit being locked in that GCD causes you to lose Exorcism or Holy Shock, it's just not worth it. So judging Martyrdom, it doesn't do any damage, and it just can't be supported by the build. The other interesting thing about Seal of Martyrdom over here was she's so tight on GCD usage, and she's so yeah, I know, giggity. She's so tight. What the hell am I trying to say here? She doesn't gain that much from Windfury for a variety of reasons. The number one reason she doesn't gain a lot from Windfury is there's overlapping GCDs, and we already calculated that over here, so you can loss and overlap. So this is the number of attacks, but you're actually critting a lot less. These number of attacks should generate 27 crits, but we're only doing 25 crits because we have to anticipate this melee attack crit, my next melee attack also crit, but I can't support the GCD because I'm already locked into a GCD. I already did Exorcism. I'm trying to Holy Shock. You get the idea. You're critting so much that you're gonna lose Art of War procs. And on top of that, once you start losing Art of War procs, you might lose Consecration uptime, and Lord knows you can't support Judgments anytime soon. Windfury doesn't help because Windfury comes right after your attack. So it'd be like you hit once, and then you'll hit anywhere between, if Windfury goes off, you'll hit anywhere between 2 times to 4 times, and if any of those are more than, if any of those attacks combos more than crit once, that crit is just completely lost. Which means you're actually not gaining that much out of Windfury from Seal of Martyrdom as you would think. I haven't done the math on it. It's probably about reduce its effect by 50%, give or take. This is not really an issue with Seal of Righteousness at all. She doesn't really care. Windfury will almost have a 100% effect on Seal of Righteousness. You can see the total numbers of TPS are almost identical, like literally identical, like literally within 1% of each other at the current gear. The reason for this is because, yes, this number of 520 TPS is higher than this number of 495 threat per second. However, it doesn't calculate. None of these calculate in front load threat generation. So it's not calculating your first exorcism, your first holy shock, your first judgment, any of that front load damage whatsoever. And because one of these paladins comes with a fair bit more spell power and comes with a judgment that's on par with an exorcism, or like the judgment does almost 400 damage on Seal of Righteousness. It means that when you pull a target, the SOR build is going to do significantly more threat on the pull than the SOM build will, which is actually really important. And when you're probably done calculating in the front load damage, these two are probably within 1% of performance with each other. The SOM build is also all over the place with her performance. She can go up and higher in TPS. She can go down in TPS. She's just all over the place. Other interesting things about the SOR build on the blue, besides the SOR and the purple, is the SOM. Is that you were doing an exorcism once every about 10 seconds with this build without Windfury. Which means that a couple of these extra exorcisms are in here. You'll notice that we're getting 13 holy shocks out, but we're getting 15 exorcisms out. Why is this? It's because there might actually be a scenario with the SOR build where your exorcism actually makes it all the way around. It goes through its entire 15-second cooldown and it's available again. Whereas the SOR build, the SOM build, you're never going to see that. That's never going to happen. So we ended up picking up like +2 exorcisms just because of that potentiality. Once you throw in Windfury, however, you'll gain more exorcisms, but you'll also like lose exorcisms. The possibility of it getting around again, where exorcism just comes off cooldown naturally, becomes minimal. However, it's really, really hard to calculate. So much here is just so hard to calculate. But the math is basically showing that shockingly, these two builds are within spitting distance of each other. I still think the Holy Shock Spell Power build is superior. I think it's superior for a number of reasons. I think once you start factoring in, okay, I'll just stick with the basics, okay? Number one, the reason why I think the SOR one is better is because she's more consistent in her performance. Because she's more reliant on consecrations and judging righteousness, she'll just be more consistent with her TPS, whereas SOM can be all over the place, potentially with its TPS, having highs and lows and just valleys and performance issues in general. The other thing is that once you factor in also, for people who really want to push threat, or for the DPSers who want to parse, how much threat you can do on a pool is a really, really big deal. And one of these does significantly more TPS on a pull, just because one of them has a judgment that does 400 damage. The other one has a judgment that does like 60 damage at most. I mean, you tell me which one is going to do better on the pull. Even though I suppose you could argue that this, okay, so now that I'm thinking about it, okay, let's be a little bit more realistic here. You wouldn't pull with Judgment of Martyrdom, you would pull with Seal of Crusader and then go into Judgment of Martyrdom. Okay, so their pull in that sense looks a little bit better. Like the TPS on the pull. However, since one is still sitting with significantly more spell power, it's just going to be better. There's also a slight difference in the talent builds. So the spell power one actually picks up 5 out of 5 improved Seal of Righteousness. Even though it doesn't increase the seal damage by 15% whatsoever, it literally increases the seal damage by 1.5 per hit. So like 1 DPS at most, which is terrible. It's so bad I didn't even factor it. But the 15% damage it does fully increase the judgment damage by 15%. So that's why the Judgment SOR actually gets up to 400. She actually has a 15% damage bonus behind her. So your SOR will do significantly more damage. What else is there? Yeah, so you'll have better damage on the pull. And if you look at damage within the first 10 seconds, like, or TPS within the first 10 seconds, the spell power one will definitely be better, because by that time you've gone all the way around again to another Judgment of Righteousness. Not entirely. Can you support? I don't know. In theory, there's stuff the SoM Paladin can do to really close the gap on the threat on pull issue. But you're starting to look at like some inhuman stuff, if that makes sense. So, for example, you would pull with SOR 5 if you were the SoM Paladin. So you judge it, and then you seal a Martyrdom. But even then, your pull is looking a little bit more wanky, janky, because how many GCDs are you having to use at this point? We had to use 1 for Exorcism. You had to use 1 for Consecration. I mean, 1 for Exorcism, 1 for Judgment. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. I'm being stupid. But you would have to identify what I'm trying to say is, as a Seal of Martyr to Paladin, you would have to be conscious of how your pull went within the first 10 seconds. Because if your pull went badly within the first 10 seconds and you got no Art of War procs whatsoever, it is 100% in your best interest to reseal Seal of Righteousness rank 2 and then to rejudge it into the target, just because you have the cooldown, if that makes sense. Whereas the SOR Paladin, he's judging on cooldown, so there isn't really a problem there. But yeah, the more I look at it, they're literally within spitting distance of each other. The spell power build is probably slightly better once you factor in Windfury procs. However, if they ever did like TPS logs, it would always be SOM doing top TPS. But that's not because the spell power Paladin build is bad. By comparison, it's just that the SOM Paladin can spike all over the place, right? Like, you might have some fights where your TPS is over 700, and then you have other fights where your TPS is like less than 400, because she's very RNG dependent. Whereas the SOR Paladin is over here just thunking away and giving absolutely no Fs whatsoever. Literally, even if you get no crits for a long period of time, it's just Exorcism starts coming off cooldown, you start using it on it just doesn't matter. But yeah, so I'm really fascinated. I did the math. I did my due diligence. I'll scroll up here so you can look at the rest of this. I did my math. I did my due diligence. And yeah, these two Paladin builds are literally within spitting distance of each other. No significant difference between them. No significant difference in HP. The mana difference is negligible. Everything here is negligible. You can swap out the spell power cape on the SOR Paladin for plus 1% melee crit. But then you're looking at more RNG versus consistency. So yeah, it just is what it is. Also, if you look at once you factor in, what is it? Trying to think. Once you factor in seal, Blessing of Salvation. This TPS pretty much becomes necessary for some classes. Some classes do so much DPS that you're actually going to need close to 700 threat per second, and both of these builds get there, no problem. One's just going to be more consistent than the other. So yeah, so I'm definitely going the Spell Power build this time around, and the SoM Paladin is for the other guys. We'll look at the gear real fast here. So this is the physical damage build. No, this is the Spell Power one. Right, so she has a Shockforge breastplate and she has Shockforge boots, but she has hazard leggings because you get the hit chance from the hazard leggings, and the hit chance is more valuable than the Spell Power. Haven't looked at that in too much detail. The hazard gear has plus 1% hit over the other build because, you know, the 3-set bonus. Here are the rings, the Invoker's Pearl, so you got some just Spell Power based stuff here. There might be the ability to tweak this gear to be a little bit better. This is just me throwing it together and seeing what Spell Power looks like as far as threat generation is concerned. This one over here doesn't have anywhere near as much leeway. You have to pick up the 20 Strength Helm because it has Critical Strike. Actually, both of these use the 20 Strength Helm for the Critical Strike. They both use the Attack Power Neck for the Critical Strike. This one uses a different cloak, which may or may not be BIS, hard to tell. One uses Berserker Bracers, which can be really hard to get your hands on, which is kind of a pain. So if you don't want to sit in Warsong Gulch for a million years, highly suggest the Spell Power build. Both of them use this gloves because it has Critical Strike. They use different belts, if I recall. Yeah, one's using the Berserker belt just because it has tons of strength. And SOM synergizes better with strength than the SOR does. The other one, of course, uses the Spell Power because it synergizes better. And that's really the only difference. Very, very, very minor differences. Both of them are using Hammer of Righteousness from BFD, 8% drop. Enjoy. Unclear if you want to use the manual crowd pummeler. So I would suspect that the Seal of Martyrdom Paladin would benefit from manual crowd pummeler a hell of a lot more than the Seal of Righteousness Paladin, just because there's more synergy there, if that makes any sense. So you're going to have more damage per second. SOR is going to give you more damage per second out of it as well. Your judgment becomes better. Whereas going from a one-hander to a two-hander, the Spell Power increase is negligible in the grand scheme of things, and you lose access to a shield, essentially. But it's looking like in Gnomer things are hitting us so damn hard that if we're not going sword and board, we're probably doing something wrong. But if you can squeeze in manual crowd pummeler as an SOM tank, it might objectively be superior to the Spell Power build. But again, there's that inconsistency thing that you're going to have to deal with. But anyways, I'm going to end this video here. And Deus Vult, boys. Yeah, there is the math. Quite exhausting. Is what it is. And Deus Vult.